Okay. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:06. I'm without my watch, so depending on my and the wall clock. Right. We need approval of the November 16, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Would someone please move?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, period for public expression.
So before I allow the public to express, I did want to let you know that one of the things that we are promoting here for our high school students who are required to do community service is to invite them to come to a Board of Trustees meeting as community service. And one such young man took us up on that invitation. So Benjamin is here with his mom today. And if any of you want to say anything, this is your moment. There's 2 moments for public expression. This is for Benjamin. So the meeting is held in public. The public has 2 opportunities to speak during a board meeting. The first one is during the first public expression, and then towards the end of the meeting. So if you think of something you want to ask or something you want to say, you'll have that opportunity again at the end.
All right. Hearing none, we'll move on. Report from the Friends of the Library. I think Kelly summarized it in her report, but I'll just say that I understand they made $1,700 from the book and author luncheon. Everybody says it was great. The food was great. Don Avalon, they said, was outstanding and very personable. And they want to do it again next year. We're not sure if we'll go to the same place, but you know that now the cocktail party brings in more money, and they were actually oversubscribed. They were afraid that they would not get the 72 people that the room holds, but they had to turn people away, I understand. So it was a good thing. However, the bus trip into Manhattan was not, we weren't so fortunate with that. And we lost about $500 on that one. So well, a number of factors, I won't go into it, but you can imagine some of it. So I don't know what we'll do about that next year.
I actually almost signed up for it
Mhm.
because we were gonna go to a play
Mhm.
and there was not a matinee for that play. And actually, then I looked, there were a lot of Broadway shows have given up their Wednesday matinees.
Oh, didn't know that.
So that might have been a factor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so many people go in just for that reason, because
Yeah.
you know, they
Some
want
of
to
them
get
had-
back on the 5 or 6 o'clock
Yeah.
bus.
And some of them had shows, but the one we wanted to go to did not. And
Yeah, that's
then I
good to
looked
know.
at
Yeah.
What is that bus rental cost for the kidney per day?
For the Friends,
Yeah,
it's $50 round trip.
no, I mean for
Hold
to
on.
pay the kidney, the cost.
Oh, it's over $2,000. Yeah, and that's with the nonprofit rate. They do give you a little break.
Okay.
I can get the actual amount. You have to pay at least a third of it up front. And then they give you a date by which time you have to have it all, the rest of it in. It's usually about 3 weeks before the event. And in this case, we couldn't get any of our money back because we were still waiting for the last minute people to sign up. See, if we had a full bus, we would have missed those people, but you know, it didn't happen this year. But I can get you that money. It's, I mean, the amount.
And that's such a good point, excuse me, because I remember all my years when I was in elementary school, I always regretted that I couldn't take advantage of that, but many families did because he Bobcats and matinees, so
Yeah.
if you don't have that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's see, treasurer's report, Bill?
Okay, last Thursday I sent out all the reports and then my highlight report went out Monday night. We're going down where we're about 2 months now from the tax payments from the school district. They start coming in February. So our cash and treasury balances are going down to the low point. And they will get down probably to about 4.6 million next month. And you'll see a theme kind of running through here at the meeting, the HVAC. And I signed the warrants the other day, and 33,700 were regarding the HVAC system. So it's becoming, not a surprise, but it's becoming sure. That was more last month. So revenue, expenses, annual budget versus year-to-date actual. We're at 11/12 the way through the year. 91.7% is my magic number. And revenues were over. And that a little bit of that has to do with the Wagner team and the spillover from Kathy. The donations to that, and also the school ran a little bit over. Expenses, 2.59 million, 85% of the annual budget. So we're good 5% under for the year, which is exceptional. I have to correct the next item here, line 7100, general insurance. That's our Utica insurance for the year. Not we paid, it's not under budget. It's because we paid upfront a whole year, September 22 to 23. So we will not have enough paid September 23. And we'll probably do the same thing to keep ahead of it. Yeah. Keep the bills from coming, not paying installments, just pay the whole thing ahead of time. And then back to repairs and maintenance because of the HVAC. I'm going to start next month or the next month. It's really, this is not going away. It's just getting more complicated. I want to really have a recording of the HVAC more every month, kind of break it down and everything, so we can really track it.
Right. So you have a accumulating balance. And
Yes.
Right. Okay.
The way we did for COVID.
Yeah, because it's more than an expense line item now. It's a capital expenditure. So I'll devise a way to report it. So my report will be a little bit bigger.
We actually, Bill, and we don't have to take too much time here with this, but we do have a capital expenditure line that no money has come out of.
Right.
And we can certainly move all of the big HVAC stuff into that line for the December meeting, if that's what we want to do, or if you want to create another line like we did for the COVID-19.
Yeah, I
we can
think
do
that would be the right way to do it.
Okay.
Start the new year off like that.
Okay,
I don't think we were always going to be over budgeted on that
yeah,
line item, but now it's going crazy.
yeah,
Just to say a line item is 500% over.
it's crazy, yeah.
It'll help us keep better track of.
Right, and it's so important, what we're gonna do.
Is the electric bill so high because the HVAC is just drawing so much?
Yeah, it's been the case for about 3 months now.
Yeah, okay.
It's about $3,000 over a month. Okay, so we do have a talk about this section, but our treasury note that we took out 6 months ago is maturing on New Year's Eve. talk about that along.
Right, are there any questions? Okay, we need approval of financial reports dated November 1 to November 30th, 2022.
So
Second? Who's
I'll
seconding?
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Then approval of warrant number 12658-12702 and dated 11/10/2022 to 12/15/2022 in the amount of, what is that? $97,590.29.
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, director's report.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with correspondence, because we don't generally have correspondence, so I'm sharing it. We got a letter from the Sag Harbor Community Food Pantry, addressed to Rachel. As you know, she's our adult program and outreach librarian, thanking us for our most generous donation of miscellaneous non-perishable food and coats. It was amazing. We distributed them at our Thanksgiving distribution, and our clients were so grateful. It's donations like this that allow us to continue to provide for the less fortunate in our community. So they thank us for our generous donation. And then we've been getting a lot of Christmas presents from our library users, some in the form of cookies and others in the form of cash. And this was enclosed with one of the checks we received. Director Harris, it is our pleasure to welcome you to the John Germain Memorial Library. It is a wonderful place, and you have kept its core values and added a little zing to our newsletter and other public interactions. For instance, the ice cream social last summer was a big hit. Please use this donation any way you choose, and sending our best for 2023, Dale and Karen. I just like that they said our newsletter was singing, so I wanted to share that with all of you.
It's true, it is.
And I agree, I think it is singing.
I also, I don't know if you, Pam Rosbach, who was a library patron, died last week,
Yes.
and she has, and the family has listed in lieu of flowers for.
Yeah, I
donations.
sent her an email
Yes.
And know if you
about
got
it.
Thank you for letting me know. And we'll reach out to the family and thank them. What I usually, just so you all know, what I usually do is wait until we get a couple of donations before I send the thank you letter listing everybody who donates to the family, just so they're not getting 27 letters from me notifying them.
Yeah.
So once we get those, we'll wait a little bit of time, and then I like to send
Just
them one.
an anecdote. I believe Pam was one of the founders of the Friends. And when I became president of the Friends, she took me aside and she said, one of the things that I'm having trouble with is that they want to fund, the library wants to buy computers. And she said, I don't think we should have computers. And I'm standing there looking at her thinking, how can I find more money to buy computers for the library?
She was a very forceful woman.
Oh, yes, she was.
She came 2 days before my wedding to decorate. Nobody invited her to do this, by the way, in case anybody wants to know. She did
Yeah.
a lovely job. I will say that. And I, at this point, couldn't have cared less what anything looked like.
Yeah. But we brought her around. And eventually, she also thought that the library should be more like Newburgh Public. But, you know, we brought her around and she came to love what we have here, you know, so she was a very amusing person at times, as she said,
Forceful.
very
I like the
forceful,
word forceful.
but a very generous. She and her
Yeah.
husband, Lori, were very generous to the library.
Pam used to, she said, I like to go to the events in Sag Harbor, but I get my books out in East Hampton.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay,
Okay,
continue.
so, can you believe it? You guys have kept me here for an entire year. You know, many days it feels like I've been here, for much longer than that, in a good way. And other days I set off the fire alarm 5 minutes before I'm supposed to interview somebody and, exactly 45 minutes after the fire marshal was here to do his inspection. And when he came back, he said, I believed you that the fire alarm worked. I still need the report. This doesn't count. So, yeah. There we are. Just to echo what Gloria said, the book and author event was a great success. The friends were very happy and they made a little bit of money. They did a 50-50, which was very successful. And it didn't hurt that the husband of the treasurer of the friends won the 50-50. So he donated it back. And let's see, as you know, all I do is geothermal now. And so we did a lot of work with just talking to everybody with an engineering degree and a shovel about what's going on with our geothermal, how can we remediate it? And then also working on seeing what the subsidence in the plaza was all about and fixing that. And you will see that the stairs are back open because we do not have an issue with the rest of the plaza. Let's see, as a result of networking at the NILA conference, I'm very excited to say that I have hired Anthony Giasante, who has previously worked at the Hot Hollow Hills Public Library. He is going to be our new emerging technologies librarian. He assisted in developing their 2 maker spaces in that library. And he also managed to score from them several emerging technology grants from LORIC. So he'll be a great asset to the team. He's going to start on January 18th.
Does he live nearby?
Of course not.
How bad is this commute?
It's not bad, like Selden. So he's one of the things he said when he interviewed was he's worked in this big library at Half Hollow Hills, and he really is more interested in providing service in a much more customized, patron interactive way. Like when you're a great big library with Half Hollow Hills, things are sort of a little bit guided by policy and, a little bit more of an assembly line, if you will. Whereas, to have the ability to work in a smaller library is something he's really looking to do. And also, we're excited. I also hired, as you know, I was interviewing for a young adult librarian. Upon trying to hire a young adult librarian, a wonderful, warm, funny, Spanish-speaking children's librarian fell into my lap. And one of the things that I've always sort of felt here is that Ginta can't do everything that she does. So I hired a full-time children's librarian because when you have a little unicorn children's librarian fall in your lap, you don't let them go. So she accepted that position and she'll be starting on the 18th. The teen librarian I offered the position to took a job at another library. So I have 2 interviews, one after Christmas and one after New Year's, and we'll see if that nets us a teen librarian.
Excuse me, Emily is the one you hired?
Yes, Emily Kazanecki, and I hired her as a children's librarian. So
Where does she live? Where's she from?
she lives in Bayport.
I'll just throw this out there because I've worked in Bridgehampton School and they started to allow, shift, where, where you come in a little early and leave a little early and just cut off.
Flex time.
Flex time,
Extended
yeah.
days.
Yeah,
Flex
flex time.
So I would say we do that here. Now, most of our staff who work up island or commute, they get the 10 to 6 o'clock shift, so they're not trying to get here by 9 o'clock with everybody else. Because as you know, leaving earlier does not help, but leaving later does.
Yeah.
That's at least, on the North Fork, I can leave my house at 8 o'clock and I'm getting here at 10 a.m. Or I can leave my house at 9 o'clock and I'm getting here at 10 a.m. So it's,
Yeah.
and
It's the way of the future here now.
yeah, I think we just need to understand that we really do need to flex time for people if they're gonna travel.
Is there any advantage to also looking at changing our hours so that possibly having more late evenings and starting later in the day?
We could, at some point, that's always something that's something I have in the back of my head to consider for the fiscal year 2024 budget. I think we could benefit from being open another night a week,
Mhm.
but also, it also kind of stinks that everybody who works up island ends up getting the night shifts, right? Like that's also not terribly fun either. So
But the commute home, so it's easy.
Yeah,
It
I think
is.
It's a trade-off that people.
Still, it's still an hour. You leave
Yeah.
here at 7, 8, you get
Well,
home.
but, or to
I
think
know,
about
but
it
you're not
more,
in traffic if you're moving, it's a lot.
to have summer hours where you do it for a shorter period
Yeah.
of time. Because in the summer's
summer's the tough part.
the summer is the hard part.
So, I mean, we can definitely look at that. My goal in hiring, especially because there is not one local resume. We do, grow librarians where we can. I don't know if I told you all this, but Chance is officially enrolled in library school. So he will be starting library school in the spring semester. So we do like to grow our own librarians, but when that's not an option, we are looking at hiring west of the canal. And as somebody who has commuted for most of her library career, I'm very cognizant of what that commute does to you and working with staff to, make it easier, even if it's, they sort of stay a little, if they come in late, they can stay late or, coming up with different ways to sort of figure it out.
Kelly, does anybody use that LIRR commuter?
That train does not help libraries, and that's something libraries have actually complained about. It really is built
too
for the
early.
teachers.
Yeah.
It's way too early and it leaves too early.
Uh,
So, and library, like we're
And it
just not
doesn't-
open at 7:30 in the morning.
And it doesn't help Sag Harbor.
No,
Well, I mean, there are teachers in Sag Harbor who take it, the little
Yeah, you
Harbor
have
bus.
the bus.
right?
and then you take the hopper.
Okay.
But a lot of teachers for
They
Hampton
do?
use it.
Yeah.
Teachers are using it.
Yes.
Even
Yeah.
teachers who live in Southampton,
Yeah.
Sag Harbor use it.
Yeah, no, we knew people who used it.
Yeah.
Our office was
It's,
used
I mean,
Because, there was a push for libraries to promote it around among library staff and like, hey, and I think it was a conversation we had a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to revisit it with Assemblyman Thiel. But one of the things we said is we were like, it's great, it's wonderful, we're glad it's helping the teachers get out here. But like all transportation on the east end of Long Island, it's not helping the librarians, right? Because it doesn't work with our hours. So,
When you make that determination, you're also considering the traffic flow that we're having from patrons. Is it heavier in the morning, afternoon, evening?
I
Is
would
it
say
seasonal?
in the summer, we're just busy all the time, right? We could probably, Thursday nights, if we have programs, we're busy, but we're probably, most people are out of the building by 8:30,
But what about on the front end? Is
On the
there-
front
are there
end in the
people
morning?
waiting at the door, like in the
No.
beginning of the day?
No.
So that you have flexibility there.
Yeah, we could shift the hours in the morning if we wanted to. I shouldn't say there aren't people like banging down the door. There are people who come in at 9 o'clock, but it's not a ton of people.
But that's made up for more people that would rather stay or come in the evening and
Yeah.
afternoon.
I think if you look, it's weird, right? Because I think you had libraries that were open really late at night. Pre-COVID, libraries had a lot longer hours, right? And people were coming in all the time. We had a lot more programs. We had a lot of stuff going on. And then COVID happened and we just didn't open up again in the way that we had been. And people weren't coming out at night because we weren't doing programs or we were limiting people to come to programs. And I'm not saying here because I've only been here a year, but like libraries in general. And so now it's really sort of sitting back and seeing like, okay, what is it that's successful for us? what is it that our patrons are sort of looking for? Do they want to see us open maybe like late, like Tuesdays and Thursdays or Wednesdays and Thursdays? You know, do we have a reason to be open late? Are we having requests for meeting room space? Are we having requests to do more programs at night? And how do we want to address that? And then, you know, in the mornings, you know, if now that we have 2 children's librarians, you know, there's the possibility, instead of doing like a 10 a.m. program or an 11 a.m. program, which can often mess with nap times, maybe we start doing baby programs again at a 9 o'clock in the morning when kids are awake before they go down to take their nap. So it's really, we're still, and I know everybody's tired of hearing, you know, like we're still coming out of COVID, but we are still very much coming out of COVID and sort of seeing what our new normal is and how we can best serve our patrons doing that.
Have we asked the patrons?
Well, we're working on a long-range plan in 2023. And the thing that starts every long-range plan is always a community survey. So, I mean.
One thing we could, is to also say, okay, we want to do what's best for the patrons, but if it means that we can't keep staff here, then it may be that we have to tailor our time, our hours to staff
Well, that's the
for that
balance,
very,
right?
I mean, that, because that is, I mean, that is a really reasonable thing to say.
And I think where we're lucky here is we have a good mix of local staff and commuter staff. And so we've really been able to, I think, I don't know, what do you think, Wanda? We've really been able to create a situation where it sort of works for us right now, where the Up Island staff or the commuter staff work the later shift, and it's not like that much later, right? It's still
Yeah.
basically a 9 to 5, but it's a 10 to 6. But I don't know if people from Up Island would love the trade-off as much if it meant they're, you know, constantly working like the 1 to 9 shift, right? Because then they're not getting, like, they're getting home at 10 o'clock at night. and that's
Well,
not
and
great
you
either.
don't have to stay open till 9.
No,
I mean, that's, I guess what I'm saying is that it may be,
It may be worth staying
It
open till
may-
7 instead of,
yeah, and even maybe worth opening at 11 one day a week and
Yeah.
staying open till 7, you know, on Mondays.
Yeah.
When the traffic can be really bad, or
Yeah.
Fridays when the traffic can be really bad. I mean, those are the days that are gonna be.
statistics. You want me to talk about statistics? I can talk about statistics.
Okay.
All right, you read the rest of my report, so, you know, everything's great. We're getting money, people are happy. So statistics, we've had, let me look at that visitors, because it seems weird that it's the exact same number, right? That's not normal. I might have goofed on that. But I'll come back to you about number of people in the door, because I don't think we have the same amount of people twice. And I'm not seeing it right now. Our statistics are statistics. We're doing pretty good. I think you're gonna see a dip in YA program stuff. It's really hard to do YA programming and get the teens in here when we don't really have a teen librarian. And so we're doing the best we can with what we have. And we're hoping to get a teen librarian soon. Our computer use is still holding steady. Not quite as much as we had in October, but still high as compared to our COVID years. Our website visits are about the same. Wireless patrons, you know, are about the same. We did see a little dip in social media. But I think that's because all of the stuff that Rachel front loaded sort of ended, and we're still getting Eileen up to speed on what to do. But if anybody follows us on Instagram, you'll notice we've got a lot more in our Instagram stories and in our Instagram feed. So we're definitely doing more there. And that's really about it with regards to statistics.
Okay, committee reports. Personnel,
Personnel did meet, and we had a very fruitful discussion, which we will address during executive session. Is that correct, Kelly?
Yeah, we can address it in executive
There's
session.
One of the things that we had discussed, and I can just bring that up now, is just talking about ways of bringing in more applicants. And some aids with employee retention as far as benefits is concerned. And one of the things the committee did make a recommendation, we will present that during the executive session. So JJML is going to be at the cutting edge employee benefits in a lot of different ways. And I think this is going to help us out substantially. We'll get into that during the executive session. We're going to be looking for a vote from the board, which I don't think we can actually do in executive session. I
You
think
cannot vote in executive
Right, so
session.
we will form, and then we will come out and vote at the end of that session.
finance.
I did find the
sorry.
number of people who came into the building. It's actually 4,062, so we're down a little bit in November. No finance.
Finance,
We did meet on the 5th, right before the personnel meeting. Covered two things. Our new auditor is coming on first of the year, Al Costa from Baldessari and Costa. And we have a meeting with the president, treasurer, Kelly and Wanda, lined up for January 5th to kind of be an introductory thing with him. And we also discussed, since the auditor is new, having him present his findings to the full board rather than just the president and treasurer. That was something that everybody thought was a good idea. So we'll be looking to do that late spring, early summer, when they come out with their full audit. And we can all hear the results and ask any questions we may have. The other item was our treasury note that we took out 6 months ago is maturing on New Year's Eve. And we will be reinvesting it in a ladder that's different notes maturing at different times, 6 months, 9 months, and a year. The rates are really good now. The other day, they were about 4 1/4, and they're pretty uniform in 3, 6, 9, 12, and peak at 2 years, but we don't want to go past a year. So I'll be talking to our investment advisor, and we'll get it all lined up to be reinvested once the New Year's weekend. So
thank you. Buildings and grounds.
Buildings
Dan?
and grounds did not meet, but as though ongoing issues that we're on top of.
Policy,
We did not meet.
outreach,
We did not.
that's out in the park.
Always meets, the week before this meeting. Well, it's like the library, because everybody likes to write letters this time of year, so the park does receive several letters, mostly requesting use of the park for the summer for different programs. And then there was an issue that was the police department brought to the park manager about overnight parking on the side of the road there on the turnpike, kind of opposite the Getty station. It's kind of dirt over there. And who's responsible for that piece of that dirt area? So the library is, not the library, park has to just check the survey to see if that area is owned by the park or the county that owns that road. The park is reviewing estimates for phase 2 of the grandstand restoration. And the director of the tennis program met with the board to discuss rehabilitating the hard tennis courts and making them into pickleball courts as pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. And there's been great demand for pickleball locally and in the park. So entertaining possibilities of how to accommodate pickleball. And fundraising has begun for the September 5K race. And that's the news.
Thank you. We'll go on to old business. HVAC.
I'm gonna keep this as brief as possible because I sent you all pages and pages and pages of documentation that I know you all read and feel like you now know everything you need to know about HVAC. So the good news first, and I did send this in my email and I sent out board packet. The subsidence was actually related to, we have a very dry well in this corner. And when that dry well was full of water and percolated, it sucked sand and dirt in because there was a hole in the bucket, dear Liza. And so they have repaired the hole and, put things flat. But what they don't do is masonry work. So after the holidays, I will hire somebody to put our stones back.
So they fixed whatever caused. the
They fixed what,
sinkage?
they fixed whatever caused the sinkage. So if this hole did not exist in that dry well, and dry wells, they have holes to percolate, but this was a particularly large one. They said it wasn't a crack, it was a hole, which is like, this one time I went to the dentist and they were like, it's not a cavity because there's no decay, it's just a hole. And I was like, I don't, but it still means you need a filling, right? Like,
Kelly, do they know what caused it?
basically, there was a ton of water in that dry well. When it percolated out quickly and it sucked all the sand and the dirt back in and it sucked it in through that hole. But they don't believe that it is being stressed. That there's, they'll never say anything 100%, right? Because nobody wants to 100% guarantee everything. But they said that when they went down into the dry well, it was incredibly dry. And that they did not think it was necessarily related to the relief hose from the diffusion well. They think it could have been when we had like all of that terrible rain and the diffusion hose going at the same time, it probably dumped water into it. And again, when it percolated out, that's when, the sediment came in. But they said it's a really dry well, and that their feeling is now that it is fixed, everything should percolate out normally and not cause a subsidence like
Do
that.
they know what compromised the integrity of the?
They don't. They were sort of like, and that's why they said it's not cracked. It's not like damaged. It wasn't like something where the whole dry well needs to be replaced. They just said it was like a hole. And I was like, but I'm gonna have board members like Michael who are gonna ask me like, what does that mean? And they didn't really.
Well, because we're just
Have an
concerned
answer.
that.
No, I
it's gonna
know.
Prevent it from happening again in another area.
Hey, me too.
And did they
So
fix the hole?
they did fix the hole.
Okay.
But it was like, like their sort of response was like, sometimes there's holes.
Yeah.
It's like the Breakfast Club, like the bolts fell out of the door. What do you mean it fell out? Bolts fall out all the time. So, yeah, so they weren't very clear on, but, they also said that we should not be worried necessarily about subsidence in the rest of the plaza and everything seems fine. And it's distinctly possible, like, here's the thing, where it was in that corner, people aren't generally in that corner. So it could have happened, back in, what was it? End of August, September, when we had all that terrible rain and Richard and I had to put the hose back. Could have happened back then, and because nobody walked in that corner, it didn't sink.
Especially when you have hose there.
Yeah, until I proceeded to like dance over in the corner and
It's the Grinch's fault.
it's actually Dan's fault and his Grinch idea that I decided we were gonna
I'm
run
not
with.
taking credit for that at all.
And I will say, bless Richard's heart, it was all me. I stood there and I went down. But when he tells the story, he's like, I was there too, Kelly. I was also standing there. It was not just you. And I was like, oh, it was me. And I'm done eating Christmas cookies for the season. Don't worry.
So let's get this right. So you destroyed that area.
I
there, you
did.
Set off the
Under,
alarm.
under the sheer weight of my body,
Kelly,
I caused us to excavate
I just want to make
a
sure that
large
we know
part of
that.
the plaza.
I'd like to change my evaluation.
And I set off the alarm. But I did want to mention that I was singing. I have brought sing to the library. So,
Kelly, I really like how you summarized everything in this bullet point.
Yeah,
okay, good.
thing. If you could maybe do that every month,
Absolutely.
because we're gonna have some activities, so.
We are. And I
Really
did,
good to see that, and then we have the backup material
Yeah.
to read.
and I can absolutely do that for you. The one thing that is not on this bullet point, because it happened after I sent it out, is I did meet with, Mike Radicone, and he was lovely. He, actually gave us a little presentation that I made copies of for everyone. So you can have a print copy of this. And basically, he said it's something we could definitely look at putting into our system. Basically what it does is it puts like little effervescent iodine bubbles, right? Like through the system, which breaks up the bacteria and sort of kills it, and then you don't have
Need two
iron
more,
fountain.
Kelly.
We need a couple more? Okay,
So
here you go.
this is kill your sea monkeys?
This will kill our sea
Oh, wait,
monkeys.
it's my phone.
Our poor little sea
We're
monkeys.
intrigued about the Perrier that's being pumped into.
Yeah, we're pumping Perrier through the system. I want to make sure everybody who listens to this online afterwards is like, wait, what are we doing? But the question, what he said is he would hate to see us. There's two different ways it can be installed, right? Like if our equipment is fouled and we're gonna need PW Grosser to sort of come in and check to see if our equipment is fouled. And do some additional pipe testing, then we would want to install this before the water goes through our heat pump system. But if we're not having fouling in our machines, then we would want to install it after it goes through our system. And the other thing he said is, I also don't want to see you spend money on something you don't need. So if this is an option we end up going with, along with a bunch of other things, he would we'd get to try before you buy. Like they would be able to set something up to see if it solves the problem before we actually invest in this type of system.
How are they gonna measure that?
How are they going to measure what?
Success?
Success?
Yeah.
Whether or not we have scummy wells at the end of it. So they would put the system in place,
Mhm.
and then, let it run for a little bit, see if our wells stay clean. And if they do, then we can go ahead and install it
So
permanently.
this is after the shock,
This would be after the
the
shock.
super shock.
Yeah. Now the other thing is, the decision we're going to have to make is, and this comes in after we see the report that Lizardos gives us. Do we even want to continue with geothermal, or do we want to pitch it and go to traditional HVAC and cooling? So they are going to explore both of those at the same time and give us a choice. Depending upon what the additional testing shows, would sort of make a decision on whether or not we want to look at, trying to continue with geothermal, or if we want to just give up and go to traditional HVAC. Traditional HVAC is, the heating is the easy part, right? Because you put in a boiler, right? You put in a gas-fired boiler or whatever the case may be. The hard part is cooling. And the hard part is cooling because we are on a postage stamp, and where are you going to put that equipment? Are we going to put it on the roof? If we put it on the roof, it's going to make the building higher. How high can we allow that to be? If we're not putting it on the roof, we're going to have to put it on the side of the building. Where are we going to put it on the side of the building? So we might be in a
How
position.
high is the building now? Do you know where? Is
I
anybody know?
don't know.
Not off the top of my
No,
head.
but we,
Because
But
did
we
get a
were-
variance for it?
Yeah.
No,
did
we did,
very
yeah.
clear that yeah.
What's
yeah,
that?
we
The
maxed
pyramid,
out the pyramid.
That's what I
Yeah.
would think.
And
It's
so,
not just pyramid, it's also just pure height.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's limits to how high a building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so part of the problem with going to traditional HVAC is at some point that might require, down the road, once these things are engineered, having a conversation with the village that's like, we have 3 terrible options that you're gonna hate, but we need you to pick the one you hate the least. So
that's okay, they
that's,
do that.
they do, so that's sort of where we're at. So, we're slowing down a little bit because of the holidays, but we're working as quick as possible. I did not get a quote back from Delta Well about the big shock chlorination, and that is because we are trying to confirm that the geothermal well screening is in fact stainless steel, and not PVC. Because if it's PVC and we try to do this very aggressive cleaning, it will blow up, like to bits. And then we have no wells. So we just want to make sure that we have stainless steel. I reached out to Solar. I have not heard back from them yet. I don't think I'm going to hear back from them before the holidays. Delta Well went in and reviewed their camera work from when they dropped cameras in the well. And they seem pretty confident that the screening in the wells that they did camera was in fact stainless steel. But we just want to make sure we don't blow anything to bits.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If you don't mind? So this scummy condition.
Yeah.
We know that was part of the cause for this whole thing. Have they ascertained what caused that in the first
The
place?
scumminess, it's biofilm. They don't know how the biofilm got in there. It can be caused by a number of things. It could be that the system was not completely disinfected before it was turned on. I did look at the bill that we got from Casola, or the specs for what they did,
Right.
and it did include disinfection on there. So it could be, like, it's probably not that. It could be groundwater runoff. Our wells are, right off the street. They're not terribly deep. It could be caused by septic,
Which is
ours
close.
or our neighbors. They redid these, where am I? They redid these 2 houses, and I don't know where their septics are, but it could be septic related. So, it could be.
I could find out where those wells are.
That would be great.
Well, yeah, so then should we find out, but I'm just wondering if before we get into the
All of this, yeah.
Perrier.
Perrier.
System, if we know what caused it, first of all.
Yeah.
Right, before we proceed with something
Yeah.
like this, because it still may happen again regardless
Well,
of.
and
this.
so that's part of the problem, right? Like, when you look at all the geothermal stuff, nothing, I don't want to say nothing is a guarantee, but what caused it? If we can ascertain what caused it, it's gonna be easier to mitigate it in the future.
But that's the
Yes.
big question, and we may
Yeah.
not ever be able to ascertain that.
And here's the
This is-
thing, but here's the other thing. If we're looking at something like this, plus, if we're engineering a geothermal option can get very expensive very quickly, right? So I'm just giving you this as extra information. I'm not saying we should do this today. We haven't hit that point yet. I just thought, if you're a nerd and you like to read things like this, like I do, have at it. But if you go through the report from Grosser and you sort of look at the emails between Grosser and Delta, the last position we want to be in, I think, from a financial standpoint at the very least, is looking at having to dig exploratory wells or trying to dig deeper or shallower, because that's really an unknown. Now you're spending, like $100,000 at a clip to dig a hole, that might not work out, right? So a lot of the exploratory stuff for geothermal might just price us out of geothermal completely.
Right, well, this
Yeah.
may only be a temporary fix. We
Yeah.
may be back in the same position in
Exactly.
another 5-10 years.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be twice as expensive at that particular
Yeah.
point. And then we're gonna be faced with something that if we bit the bullet right now and
And
said,
just did, yeah,
let's go conventional or
Yeah.
whatever it is, because I don't know that we're ever going to be able to ascertain what the root cause of that problem
Well,
was.
I mean, they should be able to tell. There are certain things that if it's septic, the bacteria is gonna have E. coli. It's gonna have things that are in septic systems.
Right,
It's gonna be high, there's gonna be high nitrogen levels. There's gonna be stuff that you can see pretty easily.
but wouldn't they have
But if
found that
it's-
out already? Because they.
Yeah, that's
through
what I'm
their-
kind of curious.
Because,
when
and
you
even
have-
if it is something like that,
Yeah.
right, we don't know if that was the sole cause.
Yeah.
Or if there were some other contributing causes, that may have been 40-45%, maybe 50-60, whatever it was. But that doesn't mean that there was wasn't something else that was also contributing to that.
Yeah.
so really what they're proposing is at least, and they're proposing a lot of things, right? We're still in the throw jello at the wall phase. If they can basically like mitigate the biofilm, right? So you put in this system, right? And it's killing the biofilm before it hits our diffusion wells, like, then we won't have biofilm in our diffusion wells, so we won't have this built up anymore, right? So basically what you're talking about is, for lack of a better term, like water filtration, right? And if you can filter the water properly or treat the water, because you can't put chemicals in the ground, right? If you can treat the water and mitigate the biofilm situation, then it doesn't matter where it's coming from, because you're taking care of it at the source, right? Like, it's not a problem anymore.
Right.
But, these are all things that engineers and people smarter than me would have to figure out and include additional testing. And where I'm sort of at is, me, I've been team, get rid of it and put in traditional HVAC since I walked into the building. But the more I speak with, the conversation we had between Newman, their geo engineer, PW Grosser, and somebody else, and in talking with Delta Well, and I know that they're water guys and they want to fix our geothermal, like that's their bread and butter. It doesn't seem insurmountable to fix our geothermal. It does not seem quite as insurmountable as maybe I thought, but so many things would have to align in just the right way for that to work for us, right? So like, if we were able to like have like, if there's 5 things, right? Like if we can meet this, 5 things, then geothermal should work for us, then that's great. But if we can only meet 3 of those things, then 2 of them are unknown, and it's not worth the risk of being in the same spot.
And that is
2
something
years
that-
from now.
All 3 or 5 of those things is going to continue working on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
It should, I mean, like,
It should, that's what
Yeah.
geothermal was supposed to,
Yeah.
it should have worked,
Yeah.
so hindsight,
yeah,
we can't play that game, but
no,
I'm just wondering if there is an
I mean,
expert, who are we relying on when we say, all right, is it a go or no go?
I mean,
type of
that's,
Situation.
when we get to that point, I think that's when we have Patrick from Luzardo's come out and do a presentation at a board meeting. That's the point where we have, B. Grosser come out and we have a conversation with them and you all ask your questions of them. And we sort of make a decision as a board, or if you all make a decision, I just get to sit here. And, sort of decide what it is that you want to do. And if it's traditional HVAC, then it's traditional HVAC. But I think at this point, it's still worth exploring both. Whether, personally, your team.
It also just seems like traditional should open up a can of worms.
And that's the other thing,
Yeah.
right? Like traditional is going to open a huge can of worms because of where are we going to put the cooling equipment?
Yeah, it's a problem.
And so that, then, you know, it sort of boils down to like, what are we looking at in terms of library service and how we serve the public? And, you know, like, it's distinctly possible we could not have air conditioning this summer. Like, if we were to go the route of trying to put in traditional HVAC. That was something we did when I was at Bridgehampton, and we went, you know, a winter on electric heat. And we went through 2 summers without air conditioning. So it was not great. And I don't say that to scare you. I say that because, you know, like, they're both pretty ugly cans of worms, right? It's not like your house where you can just like put in a boiler and central air and call it a day. We're more complicated than that.
But we can buy ourselves some time
We can, which is
by
what we
taking
want to do.
some remedial measures
Yeah.
that are not excessively expensive,
Yeah,
right? Put a Band-Aid on the wound,
that is the goal.
put it off to the side, observe,
Yeah.
see what's happening.
Yes.
Get down the road for the next word.
Right, yeah.
No,
Exactly.
you're
We'll
you're
leave
stuck
that,
with
we're
this,
gonna
Daniel.
blame it on buildings and grounds.
That's So, so we're working on it, and we're working on it as fast as we
It's
can.
fine.
but,
It's,
you know.
we need more information at this particular.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm giving you all a lot of information,
Keep it coming.
but know that, you know, you guys are gonna ask me big questions, and I'm gonna say, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Because we haven't gotten there yet,
That's-
but I
yeah.
promise we'll get there. Michael.
Don't, you don't have to apologize.
No.
We're asking you tough.
Yeah.
Tough questions.
Is it in the range of normal functioning to have this buildup of this running water?
It happens a lot. So one of the reasons they brought this fellow Mike Radagone in this in is they had this huge issue. I can't remember, you know, it was an H up island, so it could have been Hicksville, it could have been Hop Hog. And they were like, they had such tremendous biofilm and they were having trouble mitigating it. And it was a huge facility. And so they were like rehabilitating their wells once a year. Like, that's how they were trying to solve the problem. And then once they put in this system, their system was a little bit different than ours because they have heat exchangers and blah, blah, blah. But once they put it in, they haven't had to have the wells rehabilitated. So, you know, it's something that they've put this system in place in a couple of different places and have not had issues for good long periods of time, like in the 5-10 year range, right? So,
That's encouraging.
The only thing we can do right now is we can get as much information as we can, make an intelligent, knowing decision
Yeah.
on it. We're gonna rely on our experts, and then we'll come to a final determination.
exactly.
But for now, we don't have to make that.
Yeah, no, nobody's making a decision.
We're fine.
We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Slate of offices presented by nominating committee. I have paper passed out here. This year, the nominating committee consisted of Bob Weinstein, Michael Butler, and me. At the bottom, you will see the officers that we are proposing. President Bill McCoy, Vice President Michael Garabedian, Secretary Robin Ogler, and Treasurer Elliot Soroka. And at the top are the recommendations for board committees for 2023. So please look this over.
Why does policy have 2 chairs?
point in bold.
It shouldn't be in bold. Sorry.
Oh, so, okay, so there will be two members.
I would be chair of policy.
Okay.
Are you asking for recommendations or changes around one way or the other?
Yeah, if people, you have questions
Yeah,
or,
I prefer being on budget, legal and contracts. And fundraising, outreach and publicity, if that's at all possible.
We probably needed somebody else on that committee anyway.
well, it's kind of difficult with a small board. Trying to
I can
get
serve on- I can serve
everybody.
on- I
But
can
Mike
serve
is
on
also
both.
our lawyer on the board. That's, so it's kind of helpful to have him there in the legal.
I don't have a problem with it.
I mean, I
Um,
can serve on more than one. I don't have a problem with that, but I just would like, if at all possible, to remain on that finance budget. committee.
Okay,
And we have no chair for fundraising.
well, I had listed Michael.
I can-
Yeah.
So, so,
No,
what about-
I have no problem with it.
Dan, could you do chair for fundraising? Oh, no, you're chair for.
oh,
building
Dan
grounds.
is chair of building and grounds.
Michael said he.
I could
See,
I
that's the problem with the small board.
I could stay as the chair of that, the fundraising and the other part of it. I just wanted to be part of the
Finance
finance,
and
yeah.
legal, sure.
if you don't. mind.
I don't mind at all. I know that you had a recommendation about some fun, you seem to be engaged in,
Yeah,
some-
I was gonna bring
had,
that
you
up.
know, some interesting fundraising ideas
Yeah,
earlier in the year, and that's what made me think about
okay, that's
having you
fine.
on that committee.
That's fine, yes.
Other questions, comments? I think we have to vote.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the board committees and officers.
That's you.
Thank you.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you guys have it. New business?
So I think we were gonna go into executive session to discuss raises and the recommendation of the personnel committee.
I move that we go into executive session.
Oh, wait,
Can you
hold on.
guys-
What I was thinking, it said we don't have to hold our friend Benjamin and his mom hostage while we're in executive session. We could have our period for public expression before we go into executive session, and then they can go home if they'd like. Because then it's just wrapping up the end of the meeting. So is that okay with everyone?
Sure.
Okay, does anybody want to express anything publicly? No? Do you want me to sign your paperwork so you can leave? Yeah.
Can you sign my paperwork? So I can-
Aw.
Aw.
Double secret
Good idea.
probation.
Let's take a 5-minute bathroom break.
I would like to say something in period public expression. To the outgoing members, I want to say thank you, that it's been really nice working with you, and that I'm really glad that you're here.
Yes. Oh. Oh.
That or he's
Are we good?
Yes.
We're good. So we need a motion.
I make a motion to move into executive session at 7:16.
And I second it.
Here we go.
Okay,
All right.
let me turn off the recording.
Rock and roll.
Hold on.
It's on.
Go. Is it recording?
It's recording, yes.
Go.
So you came out of executive session at what time?
7:59.
7:59. I move that we adjourn.
Wait, not yet.
No, we
No,
have
we
one vote
have,
on.
you have
Oh, that's
resolutions.
Okay.
May not adjourn.
All right. I move that we pay 100% of health insurance and that we have a 4%.
You want to take them individually? First, you know what I'm saying, like.
Yeah, we can take them
Take them
individually.
individually.
Okay.
like the-
Then
Right.
it's just the health insurance that I move that we do 100% of health insurance.
I second it.
Okay.
I move that we give them all.
Wait.
Now we have to vote on it.
Then let's vote
You
on
guys
that,
really want to leave. Okay, so we got to vote on that.
the insurance, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Insurance.
Okay.
So,
Those in favor?
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
People were,
Okay.
Sorry.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's carried.
Okay,
I make a motion that we increase the, everybody's raised by 4%.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then there was the other one, which is as far as Kelly's.
So we don't
Okay.
make a motion.
I thought we
No,
were,
that's just.
no, I thought we didn't have to vote on that.
Well, if we're voting on the other salaries, then we really
Okay.
should, then we're gonna have to.
Okay,
it's,
then-
I would say it's public information, so whatever it is, you
It's gonna
you have
be
to
in
vote
it,
on it.
right?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I make a motion to increase Kelly's raise by 5%,
I second.
Salary.
a salary by 5%.
Salary by 5%.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Hooray. All right,
Now can I make a motion?
Yes.
Wait, I have one more.
I would like to say something.
All right, go for it.
Just thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bob.
It was an honor and a pleasure serving with you guys and working with you guys. I have to say, it was a little bit of bad timing, you know, the rapport that I think we've developed in the last couple of weeks. And certainly when we were working on the search committee, there's nothing can replace in-person meetings. It was sort of a disaster. And I regret it because I really walked into this looking forward to creating a sort of sub-community within the community, and I think I got it to a certain degree, and I hope that I contributed. I never felt I really contributed as much as I had hoped to, and I'm gonna blame Zoom on that. It wasn't my fault, you know, but I'm around the corner, and I still care deeply about the library, and I care about all of you guys individually, so thank you.
And I really want to thank you for your outreach ideas and fundraising ideas, and you always seem to be thinking of ways to, I hate to say it because I don't like it, but you really do brand this place. You had some brand ideas that were grand.
Okay, good. So I hope do.
You can always come to the meeting.
And I can come to the meeting. That's what I'm gonna do when I'm.
So now you're voting,
Yeah.
now you're voting off the island.
and before I like to make that motion, I just want to say thank you to the board. It's been a great year. Thank you for my raise, but more importantly, thank you for being supportive of the staff and for their raise and also that increase to health insurance, because that is just, that is the only thing I wanted out of this meeting. So thank you.
Then you mean you could have adjourned like an hour.
You could.
Just one quick question, the insurance that's effective immediately.
That would be effective the
Or
first pay period of
2021.
2023.
Three.
Yep.
So do you have any more? Do you have any more pay?
The last pay period of this one ends next Wednesday, the Wednesday after Christmas.
Okay.
Okay, hit it, Ann, hit it.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
I
Nice.
second, I gleefully.
And we all say yes.
Yeah. Wait, I oppose. Just kidding.
No.
Okay, that's 8:04.
8:04.
Yeah.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Do we have a, hey Kelly,
Yeah.
do we have a